Hi, welcome to Alliance RV. My name's April. I'm going to be taking you through Plant 3, which is where we build our Delta travel trailer. Let's go. Welcome to Plant 3, the Delta plant. Before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of background about the Alliance story. Ryan and Coley Brady are two co-founders. Their father helped start Heartland RV, which eventually sold out to Thor. They didn't love what was happening to the customer service or the quality, so in 2019, our campus was all cornfields and they started Alliance. They didn't build anything for the first 6-7 months. They just collected feedback from full-timers, weekenders. They started collecting their sales team, which most of those guys had at least 10 or more years experience in the industry, which meant they came with a wealth of knowledge where those warranty issues were for other manufacturers. That played a part in our build process. So 2020 was our first model year. They built their first 16 Paradigm in a building that was already on the property. It's now our parts department. We've grown quite a bit since then. Every year or 6 months to a year, a new factory has popped up. So the one we started in, the backside of that, is Valor, our toy hauler plant. The next one over is Paradigm, our full profile. This particular building used to be Avenue, our mid-profile, but when we announced Delta last spring, we wanted to get a jump start on those. So now this is permanently our Delta plant, and the newest plant is going to be Avenue's new home. So let's look at the construction. All of our raw chassis will come in through this overhead door behind us. We do 45-gallon tanks for the Delta line. So one 45-gallon freshwater tank, two 45-gallon gray tanks for 90 total, and then one 45-gallon black tank. We do PEX plumbing throughout. We also do shutoff valves at every major plumbing point. So if you do have a leak, you can shut off just that area, still have full functionality of your unit until you get where you need to go and diagnose the problem. We do color and number coding for our 12-volt wiring system. We've gone to a 12-volt standard across the board for all of our refrigerators. We find that there's a much lower power draw. They're also much more consistent. So our customers are saying they can finally keep ice cream in their unit. Most of our units and all in the Delta line will come with one solar panel as a standard feature. With that solar panel, once you add a battery in, you can run your refrigerator, your lights, your slides, and your USB ports, all without ever needing to install an inverter, which they do come inverter prep, so it's ready for you there as well. We do a drop frame chassis, which is really unique in the industry. That allowed us to open up your pass-through space to 62 cubic feet, so offering some of the biggest pass-through storage and a travel trailer out there. So a major pressure point for any unit is going to be where all the suspension is held on. This is an area that at one point a lot of manufacturers used to add a V-bracket if there was any kind of compromise. From the start, we knew that this was a common industry problem, and we decided to use the solution as a standard feature. So we use a V-bracket on all of our spring hangers. That gives you 4 welding points instead of just 2. So across the board, every spring hanger is going to have that attached. So to keep your tanks running and consistent, we also do forced heat into the underbelly every time you're running your furnace. We also have 12-volt packs on each of the tanks so that if it's a cooler morning or evening, you don't want to run the full furnace, you can just turn on those packs to help things going. Now, we do always recommend, especially to our full-time RVers that aren't sun chasers, that you skirt in colder environments with a lot of wind. While full-time RVing does not void our warranties, it is important that you take extra precautions in those colder temperatures. While we're looking at the chassis, I also want to point out our leveling system. Most dealerships for an open unit are going to order it with the standard scissor jack manual leveling system. However, I do want to point out that we have the option of the auto leveling system. So once a chassis is ready for its running gear, we will flip it completely upside down using a frame flipper. That way our workers are working with gravity rather than against it. It also means that our workers aren't on their back all day sliding in and out, which is hard on their bodies. When they put on that underbelly, they're also going to do access points using 4 screws to hold it on. That way you know where those central places are that you might have to do maintenance and upkeep. We already have it prepped for you, ready to look into that underbelly. We use Goodyear Endurance tires with a higher rating than a lot of our competitors to keep you rolling safely on those roads. So our floor construction on the Delta travel trailer is actually the same as our Avenue. So what you're going to have is an aluminum frame, block foam insulation throughout, And then we use composite on the top and the bottom of our flooring. We do this for a couple different reasons. One, composite is a lightweight material, so it doesn't add a lot of extra weight to your unit, but it also won't absorb water or moisture. We're gonna see it again in our walls, but it does the same job here in your flooring, not allowing that water to penetrate and absorb. We wrap all of that in a Darko waterproof material before putting the laminate flooring on top of that. We also laminate our side walls, rear walls, and slide face and end walls. So we do as much of our own cabinetry as possible in-house. A lot of manufacturers outsource their cabinetry, which seems great until you have something shipped in that's damaged or broken, and then you have to ship it back out, wait for things to ship back in. It's a delay in the process, and you don't have really a handle on that quality. Also, it's a factory environment. Things are gonna get dinged up and broken along the line. It's sure to happen sooner or later. So by having professional carpenters in each of our factories, we can fix it the way it needs to be fixed, not just good enough to pass some inspections. For our wall construction, I mentioned our lamination facility where all of our walls are made. We take a full 7 days to allow our walls to properly cure. Some manufacturers rush that a little bit and do 5 days. We don't. We give them the full 7 before they're upright and brought over to any of the factories. So the wall construction is going to be very similar to the flooring for the Delta. It's going to be an aluminum frame, block foam insulation, and you've probably heard of the term Azdel. It's a really common brand here in the industry, and a lot of manufacturers are using it on this outer wall. We do too. Azdel is great because it won't absorb water or moisture, just like we talked about with the composite in the flooring. But we take it a step further, and we also use composite on the inner wall. Instead of Luan, which is wood-based, you think of a piece of cardboard, one drop of water gets on it, it's slowly going to spread and expand, and that's what can lead to that dreaded D word, delamination. Nobody wants to deal with it. So we use composite as a lighter weight material that won't absorb moisture to make sure we protect your investment. We also stuff all the areas that are going to get screws with wood. You think of a pop can, you can rip a screw out pretty easily. With wood in there, it gives it that extra grip and bite. Over in lamination, they're going to create this wall as one solid piece. They'll completely route out the windows and the doors, but they only partially route out the slides. Once it gets to the factory it's intended for, they'll finish routing that out, mark it with a VIN and a model number, and it'll travel with its original wall down the line. That way, when it comes back into play, it fits just like a puzzle piece, because it basically is. There's no degree of human error trying to measure that out. It also means that over time, if you have any kind of discoloration, you don't have a blinding white slide down and a little bit off around it, which makes it look way worse. It's all going to age the same way because it's all from the same original wall. We also galvanize the wheel wells to give you superior protection against the elements. All right, while we can get a really great view of the pass-through, I want to point out a few standard features for all of our Deltas. I already mentioned how big this pass-through storage is, which is awesome, but there's a lot going on in here. You have a hot-cold mix spray port, as well as a slide control if you have a slide on that opposite driver's side. You also have a connector point for an inverter, so it's basically a plug-and-play system if you do decide to add an inverter so that you can run more of your unit beyond the 12-volt system. Moving over to the other side, we have more switches that will control the slides and the awnings, also that you don't have to go back inside, although there are controls in there as well. And then you have a GFI as well as satellite connectors so that you can create that outdoor entertainment space. Let's talk about roof construction. Our wooden trusses are going to be 5.5-inch crown, 16-inch to center, which makes them fully serviceable, fully walkable. In between those trusses will be batten fiber insulation, which also goes over the cap. Then we have a layer of radiant foil, which looks similar to aluminum foil, but it's kind of like what a marathon runner might wear after a big race, deflecting heat and keeping the inside consistent. That will go over the cap as well, and then the entire length of the unit. Then we have a layer of roof decking, an adhesive layer, and then the PVC membrane, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So from this vantage point, we can see the AC units and the solar that comes as a standard feature. We went to Coleman Mach and we asked them, what's the quickest, most efficient way to cool down a small space? And they said, just like a car, dump AC is the way to go. So we do as little ductwork as possible. Anytime you have ductwork, you're losing around 20% of your cold air just in the ducts alone before it ever gets to you. So each of our units, AC units, are going to be 13.5 BTU, which means you can run 2 of them off of a 30 amp if you needed to. So going back to that PVC membrane, PVC isn't new to the industry by any means, but it is newer in the use as a roof membrane. TPO has been more commonly used. TPO is rubber-based, which means it's going to absorb heat. It's also going to contract over time, which is why with a TPO roof, you constantly have to be checking the seals to make sure they haven't pulled away from the edges. With PVC, it's deflective of heat. So at any given time to go up and service one of our units, it's going to be much cooler up there than a TPO roof, which ultimately means your unit as a whole is going to be a lot cooler. It's relatively maintenance-free. You don't have to condition it or anything like that. You just have to make sure it's clear of debris before you bring in your slides and that kind of thing. We started with, I think it was around a 12-year warranty. Now we do lifetime for our PVC membrane. All past models are grandfathered into that. It's just held up that well for us. If one of our customers backs into a campsite, snags that PVC membrane with a branch, they can go to their local hardware store, get a PVC patch kit. We'll walk them through how to patch it back up. No big deal, because it's all the same chemistry, the same components. With a TPO roof, there's nothing that perfectly matches it. So you get very much of a tear in a TPO roof, you're replacing the entire thing for several $1,000s. A couple interesting things that I want to point out about our factories. Each of them were built 5 feet taller than the industry norm, and that was so we could put in windows for natural light. Might seem like a really small detail, but to our workers who come in when it's dark out, it makes a big difference in that morale boost to have natural light coming in throughout the day. Also, we start our factories an hour later than the typical for the industry. That gives our workers more time in the evening to be with their families, not having to go to bed quite so early. With our slides, you're going to have a bulb seal on the outside, bulb seal on the inside, 2 rain guard flap, rain guard and a whisk guard at the bottom, and then 2 corner guards. The industry as a whole, people were saying they could see a little bit of light if they put their slide in or out, and where there's light, there's potential for bugs or water or critters, and nobody wants that. So we put those corner guards on there to help protect it. Anytime you have a window on the side of your slide, it's going to act as a natural channel changer to these rain guard flaps. If you do not have a window, there are going to be little black tabs that are just put on there with adhesive. Those are going to control the direction of these rain guard flaps. I have had customers say before, oh, I didn't know those served a purpose. I took them off. Please don't take them off. They do have a purpose. So a couple unique features for the Delta line is our 25-inch grill griddle combo, which comes on most of our floor plans, and then an 18-inch ladder, which is wider than most so that you can hang towels or use it for other purposes as well. This area is going to be final finish, so we have a lot going on here with system checks and cleaning up units, making sure they're getting ready for PDI. We also have these system check blocks to help us remember what point we're at and what units still need to have those final system checks done to make sure they get the green light. This tape is an example of our quality control. We have about 4 or 5 different colored pieces of tape. The color is going to indicate where a problem was picked up on the line. That way, if we keep having the same problem reoccurring, we can go back to that team, address it, make sure it doesn't keep happening. This is our PDI bay, our pre-delivery inspection bay. This is where all of our units come to get finished off, their final cleanup. Every single one of our units will get a PDI inspection before they leave the building. A few other tests that we run, we do fog through all the ventilation. That way we can see if there's any kind of leaks in the walls that might release that sewer smell that nobody wants to deal with. If there is a leak, we can see that fog coming through light fixtures or out of cabinets, and that lets us know that there's an issue that we need to fix before it ever leaves. We also have a shaker machine in our Paradigm plant. They pick a few units at random every day from each of the plants to go over there and put them on the shaker machine. They get shaken vigorously for about 10 minutes to make sure nothing's shaking loose. We also have a rain bay in our newest factory that Avenue is going to be moving into. We take a few units once again at random over there and completely douse them with water from every direction to make sure there's no leaks. If there is a leak, it's fixed. They're taken back to the rain bay and doused again to make sure that everything's taken care of. Once a unit is completed by our PDI team, it's going to go out to our shipyard, which is paved in asphalt to protect your investment, and then it's ready to go to a dealership near you. That concludes our tour of the Delta plant. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to go on a tour live in person, please go to alliancerv.com/tours and schedule one today. Thanks for coming.